What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are discussing the outcome of the huge announcement that Naomi is leaving the WWE for a short while because she is expecting. She is pregnant, expecting her and Jimmy's first child together, which is a lovely bit of news. I'm sure we can all agree. But of course, with that great news comes repercussions in terms of the WWE itself. Probably not the biggest thing in the world, really, to be discussing, but it is an interesting thing nonetheless, considering the fact that now there is a World Heavyweight title sitting there without someone to hold it. So, what we're going to be discussing today is what do we think could be happening next? Where do we think it goes? What the aftermath of it looks like when maybe Naomi comes back and all that good stuff. So yeah, Bragster, take us through your thoughts. First off, not necessarily about what happens next, but what did you think of the whole, Naomi promo last night? Because I thought it was excellent.
I think it was brilliant. It reminds me of how iconic the Becky Lynch one was when she fell pregnant. I felt like they dealt with this perfectly, where she got to be Trinity, but she also got to be Naomi, and I really like that because I think I would have been annoyed if she just was kind of written off in a way of like, oh yeah, she's pregnant, bye. But I also would have been annoyed if she sort of just ignored it and didn't have that moment with the crowd that she ended up having, where everyone's chanting "Baby Uso" at her, and she jokes that the bloodline will continue and it will never end, and all of this, and her personality massively comes out in this. I think the moment with Adam Pearce, I think is hilarious. I think that her basically refusing to actually give up the title was a really nice callback. I thought it was a lovely moment to be like, no, I'm not going to hand it in. I'm going to just leave it, and I'm not going to hand it to some corporate people. I'm not going to do what happened last time. I'm going to leave it in the middle of this ring, and when I come back, I honestly think the way she will probably come back is a champion wins, she attacks them, and she lifts up the title. The exact same frame as the way she left it will be the way that she returns. I think honestly that would be what happens. As I sort of said to you off camera, whether she wins that is a different question. I think that purely depends on the scope of WWE at the time. But if she comes back with vengeance, I do not mind her coming back and winning it. I honestly think that she will weirdly come back as a babyface straight away. And I think they shouldn't change character. I think the fact that the crowd were saying proceed with caution at the same time she was, and I think that similar to how Roman's acknowledge me moment and stuff like that, where you sort of felt okay, heel, but the crowd really like him. I think Naomi, this is the moment. I really do. I think that she's found her character, found the thing that's going to really connect with the audience. And I think long term, although short term for her, it's in terms of her wrestling career, it puts a bit of a halt on the progression she was having. Although, let's be honest, she's not going to give a rat's ass because she's having
exactly. Yeah.
But I don't think it halts her at all, because I think that she'll just go straight back to where she was, and if not, with more momentum than what she has right now, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I thought it was dealt with really well. I think they did really well at having her off the show last week, just explaining that she was ruled out, and then this week having the whole Stephanie podcast thing ready to go, rare and ready to go, where that could be teased throughout the show up until the reveal. And I think they just dealt with it brilliantly. I think this is one of the best things they've done in a while in terms of having a situation that comes at them unexpectedly and dealing with it in such a human way, where this did not feel like a wrestling storyline. This honestly was, it honestly felt like if, I guess, someone in like the UFC or boxing or whatever got pregnant or had to go away for whatever reason, it honestly felt like the way it would be done without it being a scripted show, where you honestly felt like the Trinity was Trinity. You felt the human side of it all, and I thought it was brilliant. Really did.
Yeah, it was. I felt it was fantastic. Of course, I think as the time got closer, as into Monday, and obviously finding out what was happening, I think we all had our suspicions of what it was going to be. When she was initially out and she was cut out pretty quickly and not being medically cleared, that was kind of my first go-to, because obviously a lot of the reports around Naomi had been how she was wanting to have a child soon and she wanted to get that World Heavyweight Championship at some point relatively soon. So that was always in the forefront of my mind. So I was obviously hoping that was going to be the case, and it wasn't like some sort of horrific injury or anything like that for her to deal with. But yeah, like you say, I think the promo from start to finish was brilliant. It got to show her as Naomi and as Trinity as herself, and then of course the interaction with Adam Pearce I think was just top dollar. Really, I thought it was hilarious because that's exactly what I would have done. I'd have been hightailing it straight out of there. So yeah, great all round, and obviously very happy for Naomi and Big Jim as he was getting called during the promo. And yeah, we'll obviously see them down the line, and hopefully everything goes A-okay for them both. In terms of the title, then let's move on to that, and take it into that discussion.
Yeah.
My main sort of, I've kind of gone backwards and forwards in terms of what they do with it. I think the obvious thing that WWE will probably do is they'll probably have some form of either one-off match with a bunch of people involved, or they'll have a tournament to decide who are the contenders and who is going to fight for it. Yeah. Now, I've toyed in my head backwards and forwards about whether or not Clash is too soon for it to happen, because there's only 2 SmackDowns in a Raw. Yeah, I think there is a way to do it if you have a fatal 4-way, or if you have a 3-way on there as well. The way I'm envisioning it is because essentially Stephanie Vaquer was going to be there anyway. Yeah, I think she is already. You essentially say you're still the number 1 contender. You're in that match regardless of what happens elsewhere. Yeah. I would then say if you're doing a fatal 4-way, you have a one-off match next Monday. Yeah. And then you have sort of a mini tournament on SmackDown between now and Clash, and then essentially whoever wins those matches goes through, and it becomes a fatal 4-way, or you make an opening qualifier on Friday, or 2 opening qualifiers on Friday, and then next Friday is sort of the decider to get in, and then Raw you have like a Rhea EO rematch or something, or something like that, or whoever you decide your number 1 contenders are. That's how you do it for Clash. Or the other way they could do it is they could build it up from there and then essentially build into the September pay-per-view, which I believe is supposed to be WrestlePalooza, if I've seen the reports.
The reports are that it's going to be WrestlePalooza, and going to show a more violent streak. Yeah. Of a type show to sort of prove that ESPN aren't pulling any punches. Yeah. Which again could be a really good way of kind of champion if you put on a really brutal match, maybe some sort of ladder match or something, where it's really brutal, and you can have some really cool spots that really showcase women's wrestling on.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of how I foresee it. In terms of like the key players, in terms of who that's going to be, I think obviously, like I said before, Stephanie has to be in there. Yeah. I feel like just to put her back in the first round of a tournament is kind of a bit like you're wasting that sort of number 1 contenders part for her when she's already earned it, essentially. Yeah. And then I guess it's up in the air because it depends if it happens before Clash or if it happens after Clash because of the draft. Yeah. And that's kind of when things maybe get a bit convoluted, unless they make it a free-for-all and then sort of it's an open challenge on the qualifiers and anyone can enter on any given show, which I know they've done before. So yeah, that's kind of how I envision it. Yeah. But where do you see things going?
I think there's an easy way and I think there's a hard way. I think given the fact that Naomi was supposed to face EO, and then was then probably supposed to face Stephanie, the easy way is just to combine the two. You were supposed to face Naomi. You were supposed to face the winner. We've lost Naomi. You two face each other for the vacant belt. That's the easy solution. Let's be honest. And also, you're then putting on a match between Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer, which, let's be honest, is going to bang, because it did on the Raw after Mania, where we all just went, oh my God, this is going to be one of the greatest feuds ever to happen once it happens on screen. Yeah. So, but then the argument is, I think there's a reason why they've kept them two away from each other ever since. They've barely interacted. They've really not been in the ring with one another. I think it's on purpose to save it for a really, really big show. Obviously, this is also a big moment, so that could be the argument to go against it. The other way is, as you said, sort of some sort of tournament, this and the other. I think, Io and Rhea are sitting there pretty all of the time.
Yep.
You've then got, obviously, the Judgment Day, you've got Raquel and Roxanne literally just waiting there to go back in. We don't know when Liv's going to come back. If Liv is close to coming back, then that's always an option, because I don't know what the time frame of that was, but I feel like it's getting close to that time frame now. So I think there's obviously a few really easy options, but I really like the idea of just leaving it open. I think what would be really cool is maybe some sort of battle royal. I mean, the only disappointment would be for Stephanie Vaquer, because what would in my hypothetical world, you would have some sort of battle royal, and then Stephanie Vaquer would then face the winner on the Raw after, because the Raw after is also in Paris. So it's, yes, you still get the Paris crowd with Stephanie, but it just wouldn't be at the pay-per-view. So I'd feel a little bit bad in that sense. But again, I'm sure she would understand there's a pregnancy. It wasn't the plan. Because I really like the idea of, in front of the French crowd, going, here's a battle royal. You have no idea who's going to win. Because we didn't have an idea of who was going to win a week ago, because this wasn't the scenario a week ago. I think then you could really put the title on someone cool. I think you could then put it on a Roxanne, who's absolutely smashing it at the moment. You could have a really cool moment in front of the French crowd and give it Chelsea Green out of nowhere and create just this unbelievable moment. You could literally put it on anyone, but those, I guess, would be my top two in my head of just. And then, because naturally then when you have the match between Stephanie and whoever on the Raw after in Paris, Stephanie would then get cheered, which is what I guess they would sort of want in that scenario. I think I'd really enjoy that, because I would imagine the French, not only would I eat it up at home, I would be like, oh my God, who's going to win this? Because you have no idea. Almost similar to the time that Jinder, I know we didn't want Jinder, but that's a different story. But similar to when he won that Battle Royal, no one going into it knew who was going to win, because all the people that were in it weren't any big names.
Yeah.
The point where we all knew someone was going to get an opportunity, and it, of course, ended up being Jinder, and no one wanted it, but we got it. But I think you could end up with a scenario here where you shove all of the women's wrestlers who aren't in a big storyline, or maybe it may be a couple of the mid-carders, but like a Julia maybe, put herself in there. But I think I would really enjoy it if we ended up with a complete mishmash of just everybody who aren't champions and really see what happens. You can end up with the Kabuki Warriors taking out Io and Rhea or whatever, and that can then further that storyline that's obviously bubbling away. I think they could do something cool there, where the French crowd really get into this match because they don't know who's going to win. Naturally, you at home get into it, and it would be a bit of a breather in the show as well, because it's not an intense match with a lot of high-flying moves that are going to drain the crowd. I think you could create some, and then it also then creates the Raw after in Paris, an amazing main event ready-made. Obviously, they probably already have some other main event ready-made, but if they wanted to put something like that, they then could. They could do a Roxanne versus Stephanie Vicker, and you don't know who's going to win because Roxanne's only just won the title, but Stephanie Vicker's got this. And it just generates, I think, something really interesting out of something that could be played out in a mundane manner. But I also like the idea of going, all right, we're going to do this multi-man match at WrestlePalooza, and we're going to do some sort of ladder match. I think ladder match might be probably the perfect stipulation, to be honest with you, of if you want ESPN to showcase some violence, let's showcase some violence. You know, we had the TLC match where you had someone like Candice LeRae take that big bump. Immediately, you could then have this ladder match, and I honestly would either have one of Io and Rhea or neither in there just to really freshen things up, where you can have a Roxanne, Chelsea Green, you can have Stephanie Vicker, you can have I'm trying to I would put Candice LeRae in there purely as a thank you for the bump that she took. And then tell her to take more bumps. And then like two other names that are like naturally coming to my head who are obviously on the roster because the roster's so packed. But you can maybe have an NXT name. Maybe that's where Jordan Grace comes up. Jordan Grace is an option that could easily just come up, win the title in this battle royal or this ladder match type thing, and then immediately you've set up someone new on the main roster. I think they've got an opportunity here to do something really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think as long as they don't go with the boring option, despite the fact it probably would be the best match out of all the options that I've came up with, of Stephanie versus Io, I think if they came up with anything else, whether that's a tournament, qualifying matches towards this match, and as long as Stephanie Vicker is in that eventual title match, because of that then negates the other battle royal, and that would annoy me. But as long as it builds to something really interesting, and it's not just here's Io and Stephanie because it's the easiest thing we can do, I think I'd be happy with whatever. I think but as long as I've got an opportunity here, either before or just after the draft, to really build a division in one match or one or two matches, and you can immediately replace Naomi. You know, we forget they raised Naomi out of the mid card like that. So let's do that to someone else. You were just building something with Naomi. Let's do it to someone else. Let's build someone else up. Let's not ruin the storyline that they're doing with Rhea and Io, where I feel like they're going to become eventual tag team champions. And I think honestly, there's a very good chance that that's next year's non-title women's match, where the entire story is Rhea Ripley cannot beat Io Sky. Can she do it here? Could be an interesting one. But I think they're destined to become tag team champions down the line, which would be, again, amazing because you'd have Rhea Ripley and Io Sky versus Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, which would be an amazing match and a great showcase for the women's division. I think that's the eventual way down. I think then maybe the Kabuki Warriors maybe beat them, or the Kabuki Warriors. But you've got so many great talent that is mixing up right now. Don't ruin that. Instead, let's create a new star, or give. Even if you don't have the new stars win, have them be the showcase of this division isn't just Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, because I worry that if they put them straight back in the title picture, that's the message that it sends to fans.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I don't think it'll necessarily happen. Like, I think in terms of Rhea winning it all, I don't think she's going to win the title, but I worry that they might shoehorn her in Io into maybe the finals of it, and maybe that's how they get in there. But I would like it if, like, you know, there was a fatal four-way of some kind, like next week on Raw, just as a hypothetical, and then you get Asuka comes out and ends up trying to help, but then screws them both over, and then that creates the next part of that storyline and continues that on, and then you say you get a Roxanne going through and winning or something like that. I think I prefer that. I like the idea of Io and Rhea not being in and around the title all the time. I think the draft is going to obviously cause a lot of shake-up in terms of where people are going to be. And it'll be interesting to see. I think sort of the top three names in my head who are maybe going to fight for it in terms of that belt, whether it's at Clash or whether it's at WrestlePalooza or whatever it's going to be called, is kind of, I think it's Stephanie. I think Jade's going to be up there because she's obviously been in and around the past couple of PLEs with Money in the Bank and with the Evolution pay-per-view. And then I think the other name that kind of jumps out to me, there's a few really in terms of who you could put in there, but in terms of like sort of a mid-card jumping up into that upper echelon, I think Chelsea Green is the call for me. I think giving someone who clearly is over, obviously is playing the heel, but is clearly over with everybody and is entertaining as hell and doing something a little bit different. I think Chelsea's the way to, not necessarily to go, but should very much be in the consideration for what they can do in terms of maybe mixing it up a little bit and not it for the rest of the year, maybe the build to the Rumble season and the Mania season, having someone else with that title. You don't necessarily have to have Chelsea have a 2-year long reign with the Secret Hervis or whoever backing her up. It can be a nice short reign where she gets a few wins under her belt against some opponents she hasn't seen before, maybe some opponents you wouldn't necessarily expect her to beat, which will help her in the long run as well. Whenever the day comes she wouldn't have the title. But yeah, I think something like that would be great. I'm not against 100% Stephanie getting it. I think Stephanie winning it would be, again, an awesome moment and a real strap the rocket to someone who's clearly over from the off, coming up from NXT. Had a good start, but has kind of been in limbo a bit, waiting for that number one contenders match to happen and for that title match to happen. So giving her the go-ahead and sort of the nod to say, right, it's your ball now, carry it. So yeah, I'm up for everything we've discussed. I just hope that they don't go with the tried and trusted Io and Ripley and go that route, unless maybe like Bianca returns, but then and that could be like a big surprise, like in a battle royale, like you say, or maybe you have a fatal 4-way to decide a contender and she's the surprise fourth person. That's kind of the route you could go. Because it's been a while since she's had the belt, really. It's been a good couple of years, so I think enough time's passed there. But
100%.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts wrapped up, really. And I think we've done quite well to get those thoughts out there as concisely as we did, because normally it is quite, when we have to decide things happening with a World Championship or have to theorise, it does turn into a bit of a mess with us too at sometimes. So nice to see we can keep it on the edge there, nice and straight and narrow. Anyway, with that being said, we shall leave it there because, of course, I'm sure we'll find out in the next week or two what's going to happen with that title, and of course, we'll probably do a video on it once it has been decided. So yeah, we will be back. And as always, folks, if you have enjoyed today's video and you want to see more wrestling content, hit the like button because it really does help us out. Hit subscribe because we are on the road to 100 subscribers and we want to get there sooner rather than later. And let us know what you think down in the comments, because of course we want to know your opinions as well, because we might be talking out of our backsides and you may have a genius idea that we didn't think of, which would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, enough of that rambling. With all that being said, thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.